Wilson Bayly Holmes-Ovcon is the best performing larger construction company in recent years and has a market cap of 9.2 billion rand, a dividend yield of 2.5% and a price to earnings ratio of 11.9. It is mostly involved in public sector infrastructure projects and in commercial buildings. Paul, your thoughts on Wilson Bayly Holmes?
Look, 15 years ago when they first came to my attention, because they finally had a market cap of more than about 50 million rand, they were tiny. They were a Pretoria-based company, Ovcon, and they merged with Wilson Bayly, and they were tiddler, absolutely of no significance. And of course, that was when Murray and Robertson, they're like, whoa, those are big companies, bastions of the industrial economy. So the converse has now happened. Murray and Robertson has staggered and fallen all over the place, whereas Wilson Bayly has quietly every year got better and better, developed a better and better team of internal professionals, done more and more quality work. So they are now first tier in the industry, and by quite a margin, the favorite of the institutional investor community, because they haven't made any mistakes in the last decade. So Mike Wiley and his team have really got to be congratulated for that. They are quite big in commercial buildings. So for example, in Rosebank, that big new Standard Bank building is theirs. Here in Sandton, they're building at Alexander Forbes head office building, which, I mean, that building must be the most expensive commercial building I've ever seen. So, they're picking up that kind of work, and the reason they do is because they're known for being very professional with regard to the conduct of the contracts, and the way that they interact with the developer and the architects means they have less overruns, less fights with their customers and so on. So, from here, will they continue to do well? I guess so. And they will do as well as anybody else, I sense. So if the recovery, like I talked about, is coming, I think you could do worse than play the best stock in the sector.
So best stock in the sector. What are your thoughts on Wilson Bayly Holmes? They've got a lot of operations on the African continent.
Yes,
right now.
But before you move away from South Africa, I spoke to an engineer who said, you see that? You can see it's a WHO contract. Why? It's a tidy site. And I think that's the way they run the business. Tidily. You just said good organization, Paul. And I think that's part of their outlook. They stay well managed, well capitalized, and within their own bounds. Now, I think that's very positive looking ahead. Also, it's not too expensive right now on a price earnings basis. As far as international exposure is concerned, nowhere near the risk that the other big companies like Murray and Robertson Avenge held. And I think that with a currency that looks as if it could be at risk, that perhaps protects them to some extent as well. So yes, it's on my favorite list.
Okay. Paul, the whole African operations and them getting their footprint onto the African continent, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, look, I mean, obviously in places like Botswana, Zambia, Malawi, Tanzania, there's work to be done. But I think the real big work for these companies is going to be in South Africa, because we need a new oil refinery. There's all that gas in the Karoo which needs to be developed. There's the potential for nuclear power stations, which are very expensive, exciting work. And I think the mood will turn in the capital-intensive mining industry, which will lead to more ports and railways work to be done. So I think that's fine. And meanwhile, back in the States, of course, all the commercial developers, the banks and the industrial companies need new premises. So I think that's going to come back. So Loki Nell, who's an internal guy, the new CEO there, I think they've got a great handle on where the work is that they want. They've got the reputation behind them. So I think they're going to pick up good work. I think that competition thing, I'm just hoping, is sort of going to go away.
Don't rely on it.
Because government needs these things to happen. So it can't outlaw the entire formal construction sector, otherwise there'll be nobody to do any of the work they want doing.
And then there's a risk there too. If they go anti-local contractors, then who's going to do it? Foreigners will come in, pick up the business, and we'll have no construction industry at all. I don't think the government wants that, and I don't think that that's the way. Hopefully, that's not the way it's going to go. So there's this competition threat of massive fines and whatever. It has to be settled, hopefully in not too unfriendly a manner. I think that's the way it probably will go.
Paul, looking at the share price right now?
Yeah, that's 5 years. So that's quite an interesting chart, because normally over 5 years you see companies either doing well or badly. I mean, so many of our charts do well, but you can see that's good for a construction company living through the last 5 years. Yeah. But as I said, this has been a very difficult period for them. I hope that it'll be better from here going forward, but understand that I don't think they're all dirt cheap now. I think many of these stocks also already factor in some kind of recovery or some kind of anticipated future earnings. So I don't think there are huge bargains to be had here. I think you have to be really careful here, really careful.
Ian, hot or not? Wilson Bayly Holmes?
I'll go with the hot in this one. I like the management.
Great management team. Hot or not, Paul?
I'm going to go with not hot again. The reason being, I think there'll still be plenty of time to get into this one.
All right, so you're still waiting off. So you're not hot on this one?
Not hot.